Welcome to Inside Mental Health with Debbie. I am your host, Debbie Mulder. In this episode, we're going to examine children's mental health, the most common mental health diagnosis among children, and how we as a community can help and support our youngest population. Today, I am so excited to speak with child and family therapist Ashley Bergman. Welcome to the show, Ashley. So Ashley, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's so good to be finally meeting you.
Yes. And you know what? I just first want to thank you so much for what you're doing within the community and the support that you're providing for our children. I know my own children have taken advantage of your resources. So I just want to say thank you so much for what you're doing.
Oh, my pleasure. I can't imagine doing anything else.
Awesome. So awesome. So let's start off by talking about the most common mental health issues among children. What are you seeing in your practice?
Well, definitely COVID-19 has added a whole nother element to mental health, as we know. I'm certainly seeing a lot of children and youth struggling with anxiety, struggling with depression. Suicidal ideation is definitely on the rise and on the increase. Just having a difficult time coping with the way that life is right now, learning from home and the challenges that brings. Not every kid learns best that way, feeling isolated from friends. So certainly seeing a lot of children and teens being impacted by these unprecedented times in terms of their mental health.
Is there a stigma about mental health among children?
You know what? I think we've come leaps and bounds in terms of reducing stigma, now versus 5 years, 10 years from now, or 10 years ago. But I think we still have a lot more to do in that regard. I know many people struggle and grapple with, should I reach out for help? Should I not reach out for help? Does that make me weak if I say I need help, or does that make me strong? And I'm always a firm believer in it takes so much strength, so much courage to say that, you know what, I could really benefit from support right now. And so what I tell everybody that I work with, that I have the pleasure of working with, I always say that you deserve wellness. We all deserve wellness. And so if anybody is feeling like they could benefit from having someone to talk to, or benefit from having somebody to, enhance their coping skills with, and to learn new strategies and techniques, I say, go for it. Go for it. Why would we sell ourselves short? We all deserve to be happy and to live meaningful, fulfilling lives. And so many people are having a hard time right now, and it's understandable. These are really difficult times that we all find ourselves in, no matter what the age. It's impacted everybody.
That's a great advice. Awesome advice. And I wonder if you could tell us about the signs and symptoms that we should be looking out for in our children. I know that there are parents, there are guardians, there are teachers, there are kids,
Yes.
they're watching. What are some signs and symptoms that you would say, this is stuff that you should be looking out for in children?
So important, because sometimes those signs and symptoms can be missed by caregivers, can be missed by teachers. So sometimes they're more obvious signs, right? So for instance, one thing that I see a lot in my practice, particularly with children and teens, is maybe they were really involved in sports before and had a lot of, passions that they would constantly participate in. And all of a sudden they're no longer doing that. Or all of a sudden they're dragging their feet and saying, no, I don't want to go to piano lessons or to soccer or whatever it may be that they were typically passionate about before. So recognizing if they're starting to withdraw from activities that they formerly enjoyed, or noticing that they're becoming more combative. Asking kids to do their responsibilities or their chores, and all of a sudden, that child seems unrecognizable when parents are asking their kids to do this, and they're getting a totally different version of their son or daughter. Recognizing that. noticing if they're withdrawing. Right now with COVID and everything, it's hard for kids to socialize. But noticing if they, if you're asking your child, hey, have you spoken to so-and-so recently? And they say, no, I don't care to talk to anybody. They might be withdrawing or feeling some symptoms of depression. Another thing that I'm seeing a lot of is anxiety and fears and worries about COVID. So are you noticing your child is talking a lot about the same worries over and over again? That could be a sign and symptom of anxiety developing in them. Are they more in their room now than they ever were before, and not socializing as a family as much, or coming down, to eat dinner as a family? Or participating in things that you're asking them to. These are all the kind of typical signs and symptoms that I know a lot of parents that I work with are reporting, that they're noticing in their kids, or even appetite changes, right? Mm-hmm. Appetite changes are one of those big things parents tend to notice, because they're cooking the food and they're making it readily available for them, but they're just not interested in eating. So changes in appetite, definitely something to look out for.
In terms of how long this goes on for, if this is happening for a few days, is it a point of worry, or should we be looking at the length of time that this goes on for to really recognize that, okay, it's time to get them some?
Right. That's a very good question. I mean, for everybody, it varies, right? Things can quickly, when kids are struggling with depression, things can quickly go from, being a little bit sad to a lot of doom and gloom and even suicidal thoughts, right? And so what I always suggest that parents do is, if you're noticing any drastic shift in your children, any big change where they're just not seeing themselves, check in with them. Right? Check in with them and see how they are doing. I know a lot of parents ask their kids how school was, or they may ask them what's going on in their life, and they might get a good, things are fine, right? But dig a little deeper, right? Have those conversations. Make sure that your kids or your teens know that if push comes to shove and they need someone to talk to, they have someone in you that is willing to listen and hear them out without judgment. That is the key thing that I find, is so many kids and teens don't say what's going on because they're scared of being judged, or they're scared that their parents may get mad at them, right? If they're telling me that they're having thoughts of harming themselves or thinking they don't want to be on this earth anymore, having that fear of, if I tell my mom or dad or my auntie or my grandma or grandpa, that they're going to somehow get mad at them for saying that. So that's often what I always encourage parents to do, is just listen openly, to be non-judgmental, to really be a listening ear, and to not hesitate to reach out for support, whether that's through therapy or a family doctor, to not hesitate to do that. Because when we hold things in and we don't talk about it, or we sweep things under an imaginary rug, that's what keeps people unwell and keeps them from getting help. Right? And so kids learn that, okay, maybe I'm having a hard time and I shouldn't talk about this because I don't want to upset my mom or dad. They're so stressed, right? And so we want to make sure that as caregivers, and I'm a mom myself, we want to make sure that as caregivers, we're showing our kids that no matter how busy mommy or daddy is, no matter how busy grandma or grandpa or auntie are, whoever is caring for these children, that no matter what, we are there to listen and hear when they need us. That's the most important thing.
Amazing advice, Ashley. That's so great to know. And I think our viewers need to know and understand that. I wonder about the counseling process and family engagement. Do you support having family a part of that process?
Oh,
Is
absolutely.
it a good thing? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sometimes, again, as a therapist, I have kids coming through that are little ones, as young as 4, sometimes even younger, and, teenagers. And oftentimes teenagers don't want what they share in therapy to be shared with their parents, right? And this is a predicament that myself and my therapist, Amber, find ourselves in a lot of the time, is sometimes teens will share with us, maybe that they're having thoughts of harm, or they're having thoughts of suicide, and they do not want anyone else to know. They've trusted us with this information, and we feel so honored to be trusted to know this. But at the end of the day, For some people, therapy is a lifelong journey, and they have a therapist and they never want it to be anything else but that. They want to have that therapist in their corner for the rest of their lives. And that's okay. And that's great. And when someone finds a good fit like that, hang on to it for dear life and don't let it go, because that's so sacred, that bond between a therapist and somebody that they're working with. But for a lot of kids and teens in particular, they don't want their parents to know. And at the end of the day, it often, in our line of work, and you know this, in our line of work, we try eventually to phase ourselves out. We may not always be in that child or that parent's lives. And so we need to kind of draw on the supports that are around that youth or around that child, because they're going to be the constant in their life. We may not be. And so any chance that we have when those safety concerns come to the forefront, we are always encouraging children and youth to open up and allow mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or auntie into the session, so that they can then open up to them and feel like they have support at home to help keep them safe. Right. And certainly as therapists, we have a duty to report. If we are really concerned for somebody's safety, we can't keep that to ourselves. Right. And so it's so much better when we can help therapeutically help our children and our youth get to a place where they realize that that's valuable to include mom or dad. That's valuable to include them, so that they can help keep them safe when cognitively they might have so much going on that they can't do that themselves.
Oh,
right.
So nicely said, Ashley.
So that's something we do all the time. All the time we try to encourage to include as many people in your support circle as possible to help keep you safe, because that's something we can't come back from. Right. Death is not something we can come back from. And I always say to folks, do we feel like we've tried everything and anything in our power to get ourselves well? Because if there's even one more thing or 5 more things or 10 other things that we haven't tried yet, then we need to explore that and we need to give it a go, because life is worth living and life is short and everybody deserves happiness and wellness.
Wow. Awesome. So great. And I think our viewers need to understand that mental health doesn't really discriminate in terms of age.
No, it doesn't.
So, you're working with children and family, right? Like it doesn't really matter how old you are.
No, it doesn't. And that's the thing, is it affects everybody of every age. I mean, although I specialize in children and families, our elders and elderly community members are struggling. Our children are struggling. Parents are struggling. None of us are immune to mental health. That is something I say all the time, including yourself and myself. Nobody is immune to mental health. If you have the right ingredients of stressors, anybody can become anxious. Anybody can be, experiencing depression or anxiety or suicidal thoughts. It can happen to any one of us. And the key is to recognize when we are having a hard time and to just reach out and grab that help that is available. I mean, there's so many ways to access supports right now, virtually and through telephone sessions. I know that's what I'm doing in my practice, and keeping up with the pace of the needs of the community in the best way that I possibly can, because so many people are having a hard time. And I would argue that although we have the COVID-19 pandemic, we very much have a mental health pandemic. It is happening alongside COVID-19, and I would argue it's happening to a greater degree than COVID-19.
Absolutely. I am so glad that you called it the mental health pandemic. Like, that's exactly what's going on.
Yes.
And it's really coming to light, and we're really seeing so much of it now.
We are. I mean, even look at the statistics of Kids Help Phone, right? Yes. In 2020, they went from 2019 to 2020, they jumped from 1 million or so phone calls to 4 million phone calls, right? Yeah. Of people reaching out. And thank goodness those 4 million children and youth called, because imagine what would be if they hadn't, right? And so there's so many free resources. And I post those on my pages. I post those on my websites. Certainly certainly, I encourage anyone who feels that they are having a hard time and aren't able to move forward without additional support to reach out and grab it. We are here. Therapists are working on the front lines as healthcare workers, managing this mental health pandemic that we are in. And everybody is experiencing this differently in different ways. But I would argue everyone has been impacted by this mentally in some way, shape, or form.
You know what? I think this is a great place to take a break, Ashley. And when we come back, I would love for you to talk about your business, what you're doing on the front lines to help support children, youth, and families during this mental health pandemic. So we're going to take a break and come.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Welcome back to Inside Mental Health. We are here with Ashley Bergman, who is a child and family therapist, and we're talking about children's mental health. So, Ashley, I would love for you to talk about your business, your service that you offer, your frontline work that you're doing, and tell us a little bit about your practice.
Absolutely. So I service Simcoe County and York Region through Ashley Bergman Child and Family Therapy. And I specialize in mental health. I specialize in children and families, and I also specialize in working with the Indigenous community as well. So I've certainly been very busy throughout this pandemic. And like I said earlier, we really are in a mental health pandemic. And so as a helper, as a therapist, I'm always thinking of how I can meet families where they're at, meet kids where they're at, be helpful in any way I can. And so we've actually expanded our services. So we offer therapy to children, to teens, to parents, to adults, and families as well. And, clearly, with kids being home and learning from home, parents aren't getting the breaks they need. So one way that I thought I could help through my practice as a business owner and a therapist is to offer respite services to give parents and caregivers a break. So this is something I newly added to our services, and we have a fantastic respite worker, Jody, who is servicing the community, and it's so needed. Families are doing the best they can with limited resources, with limited support. And this was one way that we could help, and one way that I could as a business owner. And so that's a really exciting service that we're now offering that is available to families should they need it or want it. And then on top of that, with kids being home and on screens and learning in front of, tablets and computers, I can't help but think of their little brains and our brains as adults being in front of technology all the time. And so I opened up a bit of a store within my practice, and I'm selling different products as well. So I sell everything from wiggly seats for kids who are a little squirmy, really highly effective for kids that have ADHD or autism or sensory processing disorder, to name a few. And then we also have blue light filter glasses for kids, teens, and adults. And the feedback that I am getting from families has been incredible of what a difference these tools are making for kids. Just protecting their brains, helping their sleep quality, helping them behaviorally, right? When we're not sleeping well, we're cranky. Kids are the same way, right? And when we're in front of screens, it depletes our melatonin in our brain, our supply. And so when we wear those blue light filter glasses, it helps the kids immensely. It helps us as adults. So those are available as well. And most popular has definitely been my Fidget toolkits. So again, I'm always thinking of ways that I can meet kids where they're at, help them in any way I can by giving them tools, right? Yes. We talk a lot about, it's so much more powerful when we can give a child the spoon to feed themselves instead of feeding them. Right. And so that's what I think the Fidget toolkits have really created, is an opportunity to have one little bundle bag of 14 different fidget tools that are highly effective, that I've created with my years of experience in working with mental health and seeing which ones are the most effective. And these have been selling like hotcakes, and so helpful to kids and to adults. Right? How many of us are pen clickers, or how many of us, play with paper clips, or we shake our foot when we're in meetings? We all have sensory needs, right? Some of us like spice. Some of us, can't stand loud noises. Some of us chew on pen caps. So this is a way that we can, make products available, make tools available for kids and for adults to use in their homes, at their desks at school, wherever they are. They can just conveniently take it to wherever they are. So that's something exciting that has rolled out in the last month as well.
And I got to say that I did purchase one of these.
You did.
Kids, and my kids were using when they were doing online learning here at home. Mm-hmm. And just the difference that I saw in terms of their attention span and being able to sit.
Yes.
And just being able to fidget, but they're paying attention. Like it was incredible. And they've taken it on car rides. They've taken it, they're just taking it with them. And they're so convenient. So I really thank you for even thinking about the fact that, this is just something that they can take with them.
And it's something we as caregivers, it's not a big investment at the end of the day, but if it can help them to concentrate, help them to listen and learn, help them to, make that car ride a little easier for them and for you as caregivers, why would we not do that? Right? Kids are often fidgeting, and you don't need a diagnosis and we all have sensory needs. Right. And so, I think that's a common misconception amongst the community, is that fidget tools are only for children with diagnoses or only for adults with diagnoses. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
That's right. And does a child need to have a diagnosis in order to come and see you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oftentimes parents call because they feel like their child, maybe they've gone through a divorce or a separation, and they want their child to have somebody to confide in, to talk to process that with. Or maybe there was a traumatic incident in their life and they want somebody to be able to teach them coping skills. They don't have to have a diagnosis in any way, shape, or form. We all can benefit from talking to somebody that has the expertise to help us.
Awesome. That's great. And that's good for people to know too. That's not something that you need to wait and talk to a doctor about, right? It's if you know about the resources, they know about you, go on and reach out. And that's a message ending.
Please do. Don't ever hesitate to reach out, because you know what, at the end of the day, so often when I work with children or teens or families or parents, they're, again, going back to that stigma, right? There's this fear of reaching out and saying, I would like support, right? And I think so often people feel like those around them think they need it. Mm-hmm. I don't like that word need. Yeah. None of us need to be fixed. None of us need to change. It's that we deserve to have all the tools we can possibly have to conquer this really challenging world that we live in.
Right. This is why you are so good at what you do. You drop some golden gems today, and thank you so much. So lastly, how would you encourage parents, caregivers, teachers, anybody who interacts with children? How would you encourage them to stay the course, seek treatment, and know that there is no shame in asking for help? And you've mentioned a lot of that. Is there just kind of one sentence that you would encourage parents, anybody who interacts with children? What would be?
I would tell anybody that interacts with children in any capacity, if they're noticing that a little one or somebody in their life could benefit from therapy and feel like that could be helpful, to reach out and grab it and to not hesitate. Because at the end of the day, when we are sick, and this is how I look at mental health and therapy, and I think that this is the way we all should, is if we have a toothache, we don't go on living with a toothache and avoiding going to the dentist. We go and we rectify it, and we go to the expert that knows how to fix what we are experiencing and that symptom we're experiencing. And so why would we not do the same with our mental health? Why would we not do the same to be happy and to live fulfilling lives? We don't have to wait until it reaches a crisis point to ask for help. We don't need it to get there. Right? We can get help right now before it spirals any further. We can learn ways to cope. We're not born knowing how to do this. Yeah. We're not born knowing how to regulate our emotions or calm down or cope with life stressors. That's why as parents and caregivers, we rock our babies when they're crying. We sing to them, right? We do all of these things to help them regulate because we don't know how to inherently do this. We need to be taught. And so if as caregivers, our expertise is not therapy, then why wouldn't we reach out to the people that can provide that service the same way we would go to a doctor or go to the ER department if we have a broken bone?
Perfect. And to be able to work with somebody just as lovely as you, where can we find you? Where can our viewers get in touch with you?
I am available through social media. So you can find me at Ashley Bergman Therapy on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook as well at Ashley Bergman Child and Family Therapy. You can certainly reach out to me via email or go to my website for more information about what I provide and who I am and where I come from and my expertise. My website is www.ashleybergmanchildandfamilytherapy.com.
Perfect. Oh, like I said, you are doing some awesome work in the community, and I want to thank you so much, Ashley, for talking about this today, for being on the show, and for the work that you do. So thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you to the viewers for joining us on Inside Mental Health. And remember, and Ashley has said this too, you are not alone. Let's help erase the stigma of mental health together.